I grew up watching football in an era where two vastly different football philosophies clashed at the highest level. Offensive possession-based football by managers like Pep Guardiola, where they opted to overload the enemy's defense with their offensive players, and counter-attacking football by managers like Jose Mourinho, who opted to sit back and let opponents swarm their side of the field, pull them away from their defensive third, and make them susceptible to counterattack. Today we'll be talking about the latter in Apex's own variation of counter-attacking football. Counter-attacking is an attack in response to successfully defending in an enemy attack. A successful counterattack is quick and decisive, with the objective being to catch the enemy off guard and overwhelm them. When you're counterattacking, you're letting the enemy in esports. In fencing, for example, they call the defending part the parry, the following counterattack the riposte. So how does this all relate to Apex? Well, when you're playing hard zone, that you can bet that you are going to be pushed by an edge team, mid, and or late game. Especially at LAN where teams are not afraid to take game-winning risks. You generally have two options. You either stall or you kill the team. If you get the opportunity to clear out the edge team that is pushing you, you should obviously take it. If the opportunity arises, killing that team in favor of stalling is being able to clear out a team from your rotate, upgrading your loot since you've been playing hard zone from the start of the game, and getting 3 points is incredibly valuable. Historically, zone comps have not had the tools to effectively do this. In Wraith Path Wattson meta, edge teams did not have the legends, armors, or meds to take practical fights against zone teams in order to get a better spot, as evident by this area being dominated by teams who landed in the center of the map. All these teams had to do to successfully defend a push was to stall the team pushing them enough for that team to die to zone, try another rotate, or for them to get third partied. But with how Respawn has designed their game since then, which is to de-incentivize static movement, aka Wattson meta, stalling isn't enough to stop the new gen edge teams from pushing you. Respawn has buffed teamfighting legends, introduced lots of assault legends to the game, added Evo armors, and introduced the replicator. Edge teams now have the utility to fight for their rotates. This is especially evident by the success of edge teams at the most recent LAN in Sweden. So let's talk about the buildings and terrain on Stormpoint. In addition to Respawn's legend design philosophy that I just mentioned, the direction they've taken with buildings is very similar. Respawn does not want static gameplay in the form of Wraith Path Wattson meta. They want people to be quick on their feet, both offensively and defensively. They want people to skirmish and fight, and they're willing to make that abundantly clear with building and terrain design. In all of these scenarios, there's very little cover inside, and too many threats for 3 people to hold. To escape these sightlines and crossfires, there's generally only one safe spot that, if taken, corners you, making you susceptible to nades and utility like Cossack Ult, Horizon Ult, and Seer. It also makes it hard to know where and when they're going to peek you, as there are so many doors and windows that they can peek you from. In some of these scenarios, the team outside also has scalable terrain near doors to help them escape, very much like a fire escape. This is in contrast to World's Edge, where buildings have less doors, windows, and crossfires to worry about, making resisting a push so much easier. Valk especially lets a lot of this happen, as she gets to fly around, take multiple different window and door angles quickly with her overtuned passive. The counterplay to getting angled out like this is to 3-man swing on someone who's ISO, because if you let the fight play out, you will eventually keep getting cornered and die, or a team will take a floor of your building. Coexisting is obviously not good because you simply don't want to share space with anyone in a battle royale. You only let teams coexist with you when you don't have the means to stop it from happening, like potential third parties, or you don't have the utility for it. It's obviously kind of hard to pick someone out if you don't know exactly where they all are, because you only get to see them when they decide to peek. And they have so many different windows and doors that they can peek from, making them unpredictable and you highly predictable as you are stuck inside a building. And there's only one safe spot. This is where Seer Wattson Valk comes in. Seer Wattson Valk is a solution to the getting angled out in these buildings problem. This comp lets you successfully defend from getting angled out, as you know where and when you're going to get peeked from. It also extends the window to pick someone out to 2-3-man swing on, as you have 100% time wallhawks with Seer ult on them. Now it's not the enemy that gets to be unpredictable with the multiple windows and doors they can peek you from. Now you get multiple doors and windows to peek from and to be unpredictable. It's really simple. Here's the sequence. You get pushed by an edge team, you throw a Seer ult down. Pick an isolated target and you push them. Get a knock or an opening, you back up, retreat, heal, you heal or res cancel, go back in, clean up the fight. The goal is to get minimum 1 knock in 30 seconds. Why 1 knock? Sometimes 1 knock is not enough to finish off a team with Gibby. But because Seer has a res cancel, your 1 knock turns into a guaranteed thirst. Once it's a 3v2, you've obviously won.
Bottom side, play on the lower side and look. There's nothing there. Roof, I'm coming in. Yeah, I'm looting. I'm killing. Play bottom, let them have roof.
Yeah. I have no weapon.
You have to call it. Nice, yes. Scanning, cancelling here, cancelling res.
No, I'm gonna get accused.
Yeah, I'm going up. Coming up.
I can't
Same.
I asked up with me.
I'm on you. They're running up to this. Give him to that. Go side.
Yeah.
Get new gen down. I'm coming with Cyril. You think it. Yeah, thank you.
Playing upset. Inside. I can peek my side here. Yeah, go. I think you peek my side. I can peek. The tools in the back over there. They're all three there. They might throw us an ult out. Flash.
I'm playing with them. I'm in the bubble. Give me one dead. Valk is in the bubble. That guy behind me. We're playing time. Popping a bat. Yeah,
I'm with you.
Okay, very fast. I'm gonna use my ult. Using ult.
Yeah, ult.
Can we get angles out from below? Like to shoot them up?
Yeah, I'm under. You could. You have any Kobe's? Kobe them.
Scan 2. I'm getting angles.
Queued up, they're all on top of the roof now. I can cube them. I'm trying to
One guy
Kobe.
drop on my side. Going back up. Give me slow.
Yeah, they're.
I'm coming inside. I'm alive. Popping back from the door. Okay, they're getting shot back.
Yeah.
This is especially easy to do against Gibby, because you just see or cue the bubble when they bubble us. You truly cannot miss. Sometimes, even just an initial crack is enough to win a fight. The more time spent healing, the more time that they are out of the fight, and because you might have taken some damage trying to get the first crack or knock, you get to heal while they can't. You get to increase the HP difference between you and the enemy, which makes the rest of the fight cleaner, and it also helps alleviate the risk of the 3P. One of the biggest issues with taking fights in zone is you have very short windows to fight because other teams are near you. And in these scenarios, it is absolutely realistic and practical to expect professional teams to get one knock from a Seer ult. But Raven, can't you just crouch in Seer ult? Well, whenever you're crouching in Seer ult, what you're doing is you're trading one status effect, wall hacks, or another, a slow. Because crouching is effectively a slow. You limit how fast you can survey area while crouching to fight, which makes you susceptible to getting cornered, and also makes you easy to hit with a Seer Q. You're not a danger anymore if you're crouching in a Seer ult. You're still just as much the prey in the situation. You simply just traded the status effect.
I got 2 needs. I got 2 fucking needs. Right, I'm gonna bully this kid.
Let me know when you do damage.
Just one shot. I got it down.
Nice.
Well, why can't Bloodhound do this? Even during their ultimate, Bloodhound only has scan information 33% of the time, as opposed to Seer's 100%. That doesn't fill in the information gaps for you to have a big enough window to consistently counterattack. Bloodhound has to stop what they're doing. Seer can heal, res, shoot, while his ultimate is up. Seer ult is 2 minutes, while Bloodhound's is 3 minutes. This is less important for the push, but more for something we'll talk about later, which is playing the attrition warfare game with people that are playing next to you or trying to coexist with you without having to burn a long cooldown. Bloodhound ult can't get destroyed, Raven. Well, if you're playing a safe spot in zone, that also means that there must be a safe spot for you to heal, and there must also be a safe spot for your gen. This also means there's a safe spot for Seer ult. Oxygen also protects it from it being destroyed by Gibby ult. Let's talk about 3Ps. The reality is people do not want a 3P inside a Seer ulted, fenced, and genned up building your area. They'll get pre-fired and they'll spend an obnoxious amount of time getting around fences. While you also have the stability to fall back on, which is Seer ult, fences, and gen, if the 3P does try to move up. Seer Q also just opens up the windows you get to finish a fight after a cracker or not.
101, 100 another. Watch it out. Going back. Play slow. I'm casting their heal.
Batting.
Lock, they didn't heal. Lock. Back to the back. They're gonna get off. I can just stairs. Nice, play slow, Faradin, play slow. Getting pushed. Yeah, good job. You're watching this.
Yeah, good.
Can we now, after this medkit, we all swing that and we wipe them, yeah? Go swing now. Come, swing it. Nice, I'm on the...
Now, I've briefly mentioned Wattson, but I do need to talk more about what she does. Remember what I said earlier about needing to defend successfully before you counterattack? Just like a parry that comes before the riposte, Wattson lets you defend successfully by neutralizing enemy pushes. That's essentially what she is. She's a neutralizer. She slows down the attackers, takes time to work defenses and get around them. She denies utility that teams need to push you, Horizontal, Classical, Gibiel, Nade, and she provides burst healing to recover faster during an after fight. On purple armor, popping 2 cells on Wattson Gen takes almost the same amount of time to heal full shields as a bat. When you're playing zone and not getting pushed early game, she lets you save meds for late game and provides healing so you can trade to get armors up. The combination of healing and seer scans lets you harass other teams near you so you can play the attrition warfare game and strip their resources while not affecting your own.
Throw this hit. Do it. Look, let me from the window to the top.
I'm gonna pick the doorway as well.
I'm gonna play for the window. Look at it.
Give him minus 90. Give him minus 90. Give ult to new. Give ult to new. Give ult to new. I can't pick.
Just watch me. Just watch. Get on the roof. Watch.
They destroyed my wall hack.
He dropped on roof.
Back to the Find battle time.
I can't fight. I can't fight. It's just so slow. Like, team on the too much. I reckon it's too much. I can't. The team on the tender keeps a wingman.
I'm doing so much damage to them though.
Guys outside.
No, they're gonna be out of mess soon. I am giving ult now. I'm giving ult now.
I'm gonna bully the fuck out. I got 2 needs. I got 2 fucking needs. I'm gonna bully this kid.
Let me know when you do damage and I can scan. Okay, scanning.
Give you.
They're swinging you.
120 on Valk. 120 on Valk.
Where is she? Which one? I'm trying to cancel heal. Cancel heal.
Keep it low.
Give me this one. Hold it down.
Knock one.
Fuck up.
This guy, where's last? Last on me.
Shot from behind. I'm clean.
Don't die.
Drop it down.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a kill. It's cracked. Nice. Chill. Reset. Come inside.
What is this comp strong against? It has strong matchups against edge teams with throwable utility like Horizon, Caustic, Use, Revenant. Seer ult also neutralizes Bangalore, pushes quite well. Seer doesn't counter Bangalore because if someone is playing Bangalore, it's going to be at a PO with spiders, so they're getting digis, but it's a pretty even matchup. So what is this comp weak against? It's poor at winning games, especially the water zones they reintroduced to Season 13 Stormpoint. In that sense, you should be playing this comp to get to match point, but not once you get to match point. It lacks the utility or terrain generation like Horizontal, Gibiel, Gibi Bubble, Classical, or Newcastle needed to wipe teams out or outlive other teams' last zone. Although this comp isn't great at winning some Stormpoint zones, you do not need to win any games to get to match point or to win a 6-game series. And this comp is more than enough to get to match point very quickly, and more than enough to average 10 to 12 points to win a 6-game series. This comp is weak against highly coordinated Ashe Crypto edge teams, disregarding the fact that there aren't many Ashe Crypto teams, there's actually only one. Even then, there's too many ifs in how that fight would have to play out. Crypto doesn't even really counter Wattson in the same way as before either, because Wattson gen stays up permanently now, as opposed to breaking once it ran out of shields. You can get another gen of cooldown ready for when yours breaks. Now, where does the Valk play into all of this? Well, she obviously provides a beacon and a macro rotate, but to be honest, it's mostly for the fact that she has really gross mobility, including verticality and 7 dashes with basically no cooldowns. When you place a Seer down, she can just be anywhere at any time and be there to just get picks. Macro with Seer Wattson Valk. You want to land side of the map with a high chance of beacon. Cascades, No Name, Antenna plus Jurassic all fit that criteria. You want to get as close to end zone as possible. You want to put yourself in positions to get pushed, not to do the pushing. And if you can't get an outright top 7 spot, you want to get as close as possible so that late game you're only looking for only 1, worst case 2 Valk ults to stabilize. Because you're as close to zone as possible from your POI, you're never the first one to Valk ult, meaning if you need to do that 1 or 2 Valk ults to get to the late game, you get to 3P edge teams that are Valk ulting behind you. Speaking of 3Ps, Seer's especially great for this, as this Q extends the windows you have to 3P, with the ability to res cancel from 75 meters.
I'm gonna get
There's a knock, we go. There's a knock, let's go.
Okay.
Trying to nade.
I'm gonna be late.
Using Cyril.
Very late. Nice. Good.
I'm burning.
One's running out. Dead.
This comp is also exceptionally great at forcing people to let you coexist. When you Valk ult and you land somewhere, throw a Seer down and Gen down, and you know where they'll peek you from and when. Gives you the breathing room needed to stabilize. Buildings, more than anything though, of course, is where you're aiming to be. Don't try to hold dead space if you can, or if it's very far away from other buildings or close quarters terrain. There are enough buildings and close quarters terrain spots to not have to play dead space with this comp. If there are hardly any Wattsons in your lobby, you can also get a bit further away from the center of the map with your drop spot and land at mill, wall, launch pad, barometer, and command center with this comp, as there are actually a lot of Wattson only spots. However, this requires a lot of preparation, and I mean preparing macro game plans for the majority of zones before you even play the comp, or having a good idea of how you want to play before you play. The reason I say this is because sometimes people experiment without preparing macro for their new comp. It won't do well because of that lack of preparation, and then they make conclusions that the comp doesn't work or it's bad, and then they'll give up. So what sort of players, teams does this playstyle fit? An IGL that can make quick, decisive calls, so target prioritization during Seer, players who have exceptional patience and timing, IGLs who have great zone knowledge, and teams willing to spend lots of time preparing. This is not a plug-and-play comp. And as for a difficulty rating, I would put the difficulty of this comp at above average. It's not necessarily too hard. However, especially for teams that have been playing solely with Gibby for the last couple years, it is a huge transition, and they're going to have to completely rethink their macro and how they've approached Stormpoint. Other things that you can do with this comp, you can just never get ratted on. In the middle of a fight, a really good Seer player, someone who can actually pilot the legend, will be able to tell his team when people are swinging, if they're above you, if they've gone underneath you, if they've left. Seer is also really good at third partying, not just because of the heal and rest cancel, but also because of the health bar information. You can calm the damage your team does, but other teams can't calm to you the damage they do, and this is going to make you take far more educated fights, more educated third parties, and you'll know what you're getting into before you get into it.